Well, hello and welcome. Hard times ahead, as Dr. Bawumia has, given one of his speeches today. And in his speech, he's pointed out some of the things which are not going on properly in the country at the moment. But what fascinates me is that he's gone further to make promises as to what they will do when they come. It makes you wonder, hold on, is this not the same old political rhetoric where they say we are going to slash taxes and give you benefit? And we all know that benefit comes from the revenues that you collect. And therefore, if you are cutting down on the revenue, where does the promises come from? And I want us to dissect this statement today to find out how much of it is political and how much of it is real. My name is Nana Sakwa. This is PM Express. When I come back, talking to Sydney Casely Hayford. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. Hard times ahead, as Dr. Bawumia tells us, and this is the statement that he released today. But I just want to find out, how much of this statement is just political gibberish, and how much of it is real, a real problem facing us here in Ghana. And with me in the studio is Sydney Casely Hayford. Sydney, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Looking very trendy.
I'm looking very trendy after eating my 6 o'clock fufu today. I'm in high spirits.
Good. I need you in high spirits to talk about this issue. But before we even go in there, preliminary comments about the statement Bawumia released today, this afternoon.
Well, this is my field, so for me it makes a lot of sense.
Numbers.
Yes, and what I've read in this are a lot of the ideas and things that I believe in, and which I have said periodically. I like what he did. I like the fact that he has taken sectors that he knows or considers to be very critical to what Ghanaians are worried about. He's gone into detail in a lot of it, but even more, he went into a lot more detail about what has been achieved by the MPP government previously. And even though we try not to do the partisan thing, it's important because for him and for what he's doing, he's being partisan. This is not something that he's doing because he wants to be particularly patriotic. He's doing this and saying, this is what my side of the political divide believes in, and this is what we would do if we given the opportunity. And then, of course, at the end, he significantly offers what an MPP government would do if they came into power. So, in a nutshell, I think that it is an understandable piece of work. It's an understandable piece of work. It's 60 pages long, but it makes good reading.
What I'll do is we'll take a little clip of what Bawumia said this afternoon, and then we'll come back to studio and continue. So let's just watch this clip.
The reality for most Ghanaians is that the economic policies of this government have destroyed many lives. As young graduates are unable to find jobs, people are unable to pay school fees for their wards, people cannot pay hospital bills, businesses are collapsing, and so on. Many lives have been destroyed, literally, because of doing so in this economy. This economy has rather been deformed and not transformed. We inherited a growth rate of 3.7%. In 2001, the economy grew at 4.2%. In 2002, it grew at 4.5%. In 2003, it rose again to 5.3%. And then 2004, 5.6. 2005, 5.9. 2006, 6.4. And 2007, and 2008, by 2008, we had reached 8.4%. This is steady, this is indeed steady growth. And it occurred without revenues from crude oil. In the process, the size of Ghana's economy increased from $5.1 billion to $28.5 billion. For 2012, the economy grew at 8.8%, climbing down to 7.6% in 2013, and plummeting to 4.1% in 2014. The provisional 2015 growth rate is 4.1%. And for the first time since the inclusion of oil revenues, beginning from 2011, the non-oil component of GDP of 4.2% is higher than the overall real GDP growth of 4.1%. One of the reasons why agriculture is not doing well is because of the paltry budget allocation to the sector. In 2009, 3% of the entire budget was allocated to agriculture. It climbed down to 1.9% in 2012 and 1.03% in 2013. In 2014, only 1.07% of the total budgeted allocation went to agriculture, out of a total of 44 billion Ghana cedis of the budget. For 2015, only 484 million, equivalent to 1.1% of the budget, is allocated to the two ministries of Food and Agriculture and Fisheries and Aquaculture Development. In 2016, the total budget figure of 50 billion is the allocation to the two ministries of Food and Agriculture and Fish and Aquaculture, equivalent to 1.1% of the entire budget. All these paltry allocations have been made against the background of the Maputo Declaration, which provides that governments in Africa must invest at least 6% of their annual budgets in agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, agriculture is stagnating and has since 2008 underperformed. Real growth in agriculture has tumbled from 7.4% in 2008 to 7.2% in 2009 through to 5.3% in 2010. In 2011, we went to 0.8%. Then 2012, 2.3%, 5% in 2013, and 4.6% in 2014. Now, in 2015, we are at rock bottom. The growth in agriculture this year is 0.04%. This government has delivered one of the worst economic performances of any government in Ghana's history.
Scary thoughts there. How much of this is political, how much of this is real is what we're going to do. But I'm going to do this from back to front. Let's do this from back to front. From some of the promises which Bawumia is making, and then we come back to some of the criticisms that he makes. Slashing of corporate tax from 25 to 20%, abolish VAT on financial service, real estate sales reduce with withholding tax to the levels of 2008. I mean, are these not promises that all? I mean, if you go to the front, that's what the NDC was saying, that when we come, we will give you light, we will abolish this, this will be gone. I mean, is this not the same rhetoric? And then you hand over power and then you turn up and say, oh, we didn't realize the coffers were empty. I didn't realize that,
That is a maybe unjustified generalization. You need to look at the facts and what has happened during two administrations now. In fact, you have three administrations to compare. The first would be the Rawlings era of 1993 to 2000. Then the NPP did 2001 to 2008, and the NDC have not done 2009 to date. So you have two periods of NDC performances compared to the one of the NPP. And if you look at the way the economy evolved during these 3 eras, you would find that every time there is an NDC in government, our economic woes deepen. And this is actual fact. I'm not saying this because I don't particularly support what the NDC does. But if you look at the macro indicators and you look at the economic growth and the wealth of the nation, you will find the stark comparative reality is that during the 8 years in 2001 to 2008, things turned around quite dramatically when the NPP was at the helm. So maybe the NPP did make promises, and maybe the NPP did do things, but if you look also what Bawumia has tried to do, and I know we are going to come to it in a while, when he has listed very, very clearly the things that he believes the NPP have done and which are worthy of note, and he has also put things in perspective as to what the NDC also did when they came during their time. And the question we always must ask ourselves in any of this at the end of the day is, when you came into governance as a political party, what did you leave behind? What did you do, and what were you able to achieve at the end of the day? So when I hear that we're going to cut income tax rates from 25% to 20%, when I hear that we're going to abolish VAT on financial services, not abolish VAT, but abolish VAT on financial services, abolish the VAT on real estate sales, withholding taxes to be modified, all of these things are things that I have also said at some point in time. And I believe sincerely that these are the things that will make this economy turn around.
Sydney, how does that work? Because, you know, and in one breath, we're saying that this government has borrowed so much that, you know, even all our oil revenue just goes to pay just interest of what we borrowed. So when you're coming in, would it not be realistic to tell people that, you know something, we are already in a mess, and therefore I cannot cut anything, we need to bite the bullet now? But so how are we going to...
Okay, there are other parts of it, and not just what we've read. Okay, one of the things that he does say is there will be a formalization of the informal economy. We are going to bring the informal sector into the formal economy. This is something that we have said for a long time. I have said it over and over here. I know many other commentators have said so. We must ensure that the informal economy is playing its part. It is supposed to be somewhere between 55 to 60% of the total economy, which is not captured in our national accounting.
55 to 60?
Yeah, 55 to 60% of our economy is informal. All your cocoa sellers, your wache sellers, your hairdressing salons, your barber salons, all of those people are not captured in the formal economy. So you're going to bring them into the formal economy and bring them into the tax net, which means you increase your tax base. So if you shed 5% off your rate, and the 5% that you're shedding off your rate is 5% that is not being paid by your informal economy today. This is 5% that is being paid by those of us who are being taxed consistently within the economy. So by giving away that 5%, you even encourage other persons who should be in the formal economy, who are not paying their taxes, to actually start paying their taxes because it's a lower rate. And so they can expect. It's a very, it's a classic way of looking at economic development. This is nothing new, all right? And so, so the NPP, I mean, what Bawumia is producing here is nothing that has never been done before in the world. In many places, he actually even says, as is being done in A country, B country, C country, D country. So he's fully aware that he's borrowing examples where it is available and trying to get good practice to come to bear on what we are trying to do. So by shedding 5% and then bringing in and spreading the tax net and bringing in the potential 60% of your economy, you make much more money.
Let me just quickly announce this number, and I'm sure you want to join via WhatsApp. It's 0560 800 000 0560 800 000. Send your comments via WhatsApp and I'll read it, because this affects us all. Sydney, criticisms on the current government. Now, one would say, you know, obviously, and you made a good comment to say that, look, he's not a, you know, just being patriot. I mean, he also wants, you know, his turn to govern.
Certainly.
So then, is he ever going to find anything good to say, as for A, B, C, D, you know, I praise the government? I mean, we see roads coming up, hospitals coming up, you know, schools being built. What more does the government have to do?
This is probably, look, in my politics, this would be the worst time to praise your opponent. I mean, why am I going to praise my opponent when I have a month into election year? So why should I even say they've done anything good?
The reason I'm trying to get there is that, so how then do we realize that, this guy is not nitpicking and just trying to punch holes and find faults, rather than sitting back and say, oh, look, hold on, there are airports coming up, there's the sugar cane factory coming up, so all these monies that are being borrowed indeed are being invested in the country one way or the other.
No, you see, you've actually said it without realizing that you said it. These are things that are coming up. They're coming up. All right? Question I throw back at you, as we are having a conversation between two private persons this evening, is what has come up? What has been done? What has been concluded? What is finished? In the 8 years of the NDC government, what has actually been done? That you can put your hand on your heart and say, this particular development was completed, this was done, that was done. What?
You got me thinking, but
sure, go back and think, and you will realize, and I will look for the page.
The flyover is nearly done.
Which flyover?
The circle flyover.
Sure,
is
nearly
done.
Nearly. It won't be ready until the end of 2016.
There are a couple of the schools that have been built.
Which ones?
I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure there's. I mean, the project to build 200. I'm sure about 2 or 3 are ready.
Okay, 2 or 3 schools in 8 years.
Well, not that. I mean, there's the 600-bed Legon teaching hospital coming up. There's well, not using coming up again. There's the Ridge Hospital coming up. But these things are major projects.
But that is all you can say. You can only say coming up and being done. This government has cut the sod to build 200 schools. We are yet to go and verify exactly which schools have been completed and what has been done. Well, we have showcased the Atuam school, which was built, the JE Mills. Is it a junior high school or a senior high school? I can't even remember. But that one apparently has been done. So we built one school. Okay? Now, if you're going to build
that's not fair. There must be something else somewhere.
Do we want the children to go and sit in half-completed buildings? The school has to be completed. Painted, grounds completed, everything done, blackboards in place, furniture in place. Then you have a classroom. So you have a school.
Cindy, I mean, you are an economist. I mean, so what is it that makes the NDC government borrow so much, but an MPP government not borrow that much? Could it be that because under the NDC government there's much more infrastructure coming up rather than an NDC one?
You see, where I was going when I said you've got 3 periods to compare. All right? You now have actuals, you have facts that you can compare. What actually happened between 1993 and 2000, 2001 to 8, and then 2009 to now. What actually happened? And you can actually look in the literature and browse the archives, and you can see what actually did happen. Okay? So when you sit back and you ask yourself, so what was done? I can tell you visibly, physically, as I sit. Ask me, what did the NPP government achieve when they came? And I'll say to you, oh, didn't they do the Tetekwashi flyover? They did. Didn't they do the Jubilee House? They did. Didn't they do Bui? They did. All right? Didn't they do the Aburi Accra Road?
They started Bui.
No, they started, yes, but when you're starting a project and you've conceived it, you've drawn it, you've got the project completed, you've got financing in place, and now you're executing. And you start the execution, somebody else comes to finish. The person who comes to finish has not really done the work. It's like the George Bush N1, okay? NPP had it all completed, and then within about 2 weeks or so, government changes hands, and then the NDC comes and commissions it. You didn't do it, all right? You didn't do it. So that's the other thing. And then oil discovery. That was a major NPP thing. All right, a major NPP thing was the oil discovery. And then this government came and commissioned the plant in 2010 when it came into power. So the NDC didn't really do anything about it. But it was all done and completed and was a deal, and oil was discovered during that time. So I can sit down and I can list clinically a lot of things that I would say was done by the NPP government. Now I ask myself, what has this government done? All right, this particular government, this NDC government, What really has it done that we can say they have left a lasting monument, a testimony of their achievements in this country today?
It's not a fair question, because they will. I mean, with all these hospitals will eventually be built. And it would be something they would leave. They're not going to go with that.
Let them start and let them finish. All right? Let them start and let them finish. A lot of the things that we are seeing that are in place now, the idea of what should be done, expansion of a hospital, building a line at a new
I'm making these arguments to say that that's the reason why there's been so much borrowing. I mean that's my argument. I'm not just talking about things. I mean, I'm just saying that all these infrastructure could be the reason why there's so much borrowing.
No. Look, the borrowing that has been done by this government has been used to pay interest on debt primarily, and also to pay salaries and wages on the single spine program. That's what they are saying. That's when you look at their analysis of how the money has been used, that is what they are saying. And they're not the only ones. The IMF also and the World Bank are saying that this government has borrowed money and consumed it. It's written by the World Bank. It's a consumption borrowing. And they continue to do so because the more they borrow, the higher the interest goes up, and the more they have to pay.
Because they haven't been as fortunate as the NPP was, because the NPP got a debt relief. So, half their debt was wiped off. You're not going to pay this. You're going to HIPIC. So that was that. But,
No. The NPP did not get debt relief. They applied for debt relief. All right?
But
they declared the country as a highly indebted poor country, HIPIC, because they realized that when you looked at the debt to GDP ratio at the time when they inherited the economy, it was about 139%, left to them, a legacy which they inherited from a previous NDC government. All right? So the prudent financial thing to do, you see, whenever you take over the finances of an organization or a country, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, so what am I going to do, all right, to correct what I see? When the NDC came into power in 2009, the first thing they said was, okay, hold on a second, we don't have any cash. This country is cash, we are cash broke. And therefore, in order for us to go forward, we need to go and borrow money from the IMF. And they went in there and they borrowed $630-something million. All right? Now, most of us have forgotten that story at this stage. But that was what they came in with when they inherited the government. And then within a year after that, they announced that they had completely solved the economic problems. We had single-digit inflation. Everything was going on smoothly. This was within a year or two after they came into power. So if you were able to borrow that kind of money and turn the economy around, why then are we where we are? Because at one point in time, we are saying we've solved the problem. We no longer have a cash crisis. We no longer have issues. We no longer have a high debt to GDP ratio. Inflation is in single digits. We have reserves of 3.8 months. So this is all recorded.
Internationally, the economy of the world slowed down. Gold prices went down. Oil prices went down. I mean, what do you do? The monies that you expect to get are suddenly halved. So everything that you budgeted to do, you don't have the money for it. So then you have to borrow to fill that gap.
You're talking like as if the oil price happened in 2009. The oil price collapse happened in 2015, and not too long ago. All right? It was just recent that we started, that this crude oil price started, collapsing. So it wasn't throughout the period. You can say that gold prices and cocoa prices to some extent deteriorated, but it wasn't that significant.
It was.
No, it wasn't that significant.
But I mean, it still slashes off your budget. I mean, I remember Setekpe going back to the house because, I mean, he was like 25% out or something.
Yes, and I will tell you that it could all have been managed better. All right? For years after year after year, some of us were saying, you need to slash government spending. You've got to cut government spending. You've got to get out
10% of their wages were slashed?
Yeah, 10% of wages of who? Parliamentarians? Or was it the ministers? We don't even know whether that money is still being deducted. We have to check with the controller. whether she's still deducting all that money and how much the fund is at the moment and what can be done with it. It was supposed to be used to build CHIPS compounds, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to find out whether it's been done or not. The problem we have had with this government is one of not looking clearly enough, objectively enough at where we are heading. They're not looking. Now, if they did, they would see that it doesn't make any sense to continue to run schools in this country. All right? That time is over when government was the sole provider of all the education services in the country. Government must pick and choose where it can do best, which is in policy formulation, regulation, curriculum setting, etc., etc., etc. They have no place trying to, employ teachers, give them their salaries, manage their payroll, pay utility bills, etc., etc. for schools. They have to get out them their salaries, manage their